in the room, cold as the tomb. Ghosts whispered secrets of doom. Eyes wide open, felt the gloom. In that house, shadows consume.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in podcast land. This is your host, Dennis Carroll, and this is Hunting the Shadows, episode 41. A very special guest waiting in the wings here tonight, Mr. Barry Littleton. We're going to get him on here shortly. And want to welcome everybody in here. I'm your ghost host with the most. So pull up a tombstone and make yourself at home, as Zachary, the host, used to say on his show. It has been an interesting week, and I think we all need to clear our minds a little bit from some stuff that's been going on and get on some other subjects and think about some other things, okay? Absolutely. Want to tell everybody to check us out Friday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Paranormal Point of View. And I may have something very special for you Saturday night, so be watching for that as well. And I want to say hello to John Fultman, Girl in a Gong, Wizard Moon, and Gerald Fountain, and all you fine people out there, to Maria and Ida and Dawn and Juno. Welcome aboard. We're gonna take the strange train tonight and talk about some interesting subjects here. The fellow I'm about to introduce really needs no introduction. He is very well known for the things he does. This guy's got a heart of gold in my book, okay? He really extends himself out to help people. And that's what a lot of this stuff is all about, okay? Helping people. That's the main thing. And he has a fantastic podcast, and where he has clients that he talks to and all this other stuff. This guy is very busy, and I'm very glad I'm able to get him on here tonight. We had him on one time before, and we got deep into some stuff. We're going to see where else we go tonight. Here's my good friend and brother, Mr. Barry Littleton.
Hey,
good evening,
what's happening,
sir.
Dennis? Thank you for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. Very honored to be here. I always enjoy interacting with you.
Yeah,
So.
I tell you what, we had fun last time you were here, and definitely, I said I got to get you back, but I know how busy you are. But I appreciate you being here tonight. How have you been doing?
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Real good, real good. Learning more every day, growing still. The more people I see and the more people I work with, the more I keep learning too. So that's always good. And I think right now is, it's, you mentioned when you're bringing me up, helping people. That's really where it's at, and that's what's always been the most important thing to me. And I think it's so important because right now it's kind of, humanity is at this time where we're kind of on trial for our stewardship of this planet. And you know as well as I do, we've got a whole host of entities and beings from other places, dimensions, solar systems that are waiting to take this place over. And a lot of them are a threat. And we take that serious and try to get our stuff together enough to where we're not bickering amongst ourselves so much that we can't defend, especially the psychological attacks we're getting from the other side.
Oh yeah, that's the way these things will do you, Barry, and that's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about tonight. And I think we're both. I've spoke about this before in the past with myself, but I'd like to get your, different point of view on it as well. And that's spiritual attack. And we've been having that a lot lately. We've been experiencing. I know you have. And I talked to Jessica about this the other day. We all have been, I think, attacked here recently on a regular basis. And I think it's because we're dealing with more darker subjects. And I think the veil or whatever name you want to give it's getting thinner. I think the activity is increasing. And for different factors, it's not just one thing causing that. Of course, we won't get into that now, but I think there's different factors at play in this. But I want to get your spin on how you actually deal with spiritual attack, and I think it would help other people to hear how you do that, how you go about protecting yourself and addressing this issue.
No, no problem. Thanks. You know, the first thing is, I think, to really be appraised and keep yourself abreast of their strategies they use to attack. And for those of us to know how to shield ourselves, it's really imperative that we know some of their more advanced strategies. And in that way, you know, the predator, the quote unquote, the enemy has given us, in some ways, given us their minds, a very
That's so
bestial
good.
mind, and not all of our thoughts are our own. So we got
That's
to be
very
aware
true,
of
man.
that starting off, you know?
Know your enemy.
Yeah.
That's very true.
And they know us so well. You know, I was mentioning, in fact, I think it was on Jessica's show the other day. I was saying how we have a twin world. There's a twin Earth, and this Earth here involves beings with perception, awareness, and consciousness, and organism. Almost everything down here is like that, at least in this world, this Earth. But the other Earth is populated with conscious beings that don't have organism, thus inorganic beings. And there's different types of them, different classifications. We go with densities, you know, volume and weight, and we've got dimension, width, and breadth, and these things that are all factors in. Anyway, sorry, I don't want to get too far off from what you actually asked me. As far as protection goes, realizing that a lot of these dark forces, these demonics, is they start off with negative thoughts in our minds, and then they start gaining a lot of traction in that way. And when you start getting enough of that psychokinetic energy, or what is it, Jessica? Everybody calls it that it's a loosh. You know, that name just ruined Jolly
Yeah.
Ranchers for me for some reason. Anyway, it sounds so too similar.
Yeah.
But when they get enough of that psychokinetic energy, enough of that loosh, they use our own pineal glands to project as a wormhole and start manifesting things in the third dimension out here that affect our lives. And you know,
Well,
we
here's
all
another
carry
thing.
these.
I
Sorry.
want to ask you about this before we get any further with this. You
Sure.
know, and I made this observation myself. There is a darkness in all of us. Okay, we know that. We recognize that. There's a spiritual, darker side to us. And the darkness that's without, whether that be demonic or whatever may be, wants to hook up with that darkness in us. Don't you agree? And that's what we
Yes.
have to watch out for. That's what we need to guard against, because once it hooks up with that, it's got you right where it wants you, you know?
To take it, in a couple of ways we can deal with that. Excuse me. We've got what is actually, when we talk, we hear it so many, to not take it too religious, but we hear so much about this war between good and evil, the war in the higher levels that happen, and fallen angelics and yada the thing. But the real thing is, I think that was given to us is not just free will, but it's the negative self. We were given the option to have the negative self, and the negative self consumes so much of our energy right now in these worlds, in this world especially. And you've got the issue that so much of our energy and our free energy is not just consumed with living and paying our bills, taking care of our families, but the rest of it is absolutely consumed with the negative self. And the negative self gives you the negative thoughts. Okay. And then, just to help it out, the ingenious part is the negative self fractures through trauma into negative identities.
And
We've all got them, and the consciousness, the decisions you make during a trauma are usually not good ones. You condemn yourself in a way. It creates these negative identities, and then those run, our subconscious grabs those and buries them, and they run in the background. Just like these damn things, Dennis, that they got all these apps on these things that says some of them are sleeping, but they're really not. It's just still draining your battery and running it down and making it swell or
oh yeah,
whatever
I've
else
had
these
that
things
happen
do.
many times. I
Yeah,
run
yeah.
into these entities. They're out. I call them energy hungry. They're looking for
Yes,
some type of
yes.
energy to hook into, whether that be human energy or
Mhm,
mechanical energy, whatever the situation. And
mhm.
I think a lot of times, Barry, that we're being inundated with negative stuff all the time. Okay, we're day in, day out, 24/7, and they know that we're like being conditioned this way, whether we know it or not. We're being conditioned. And what you just hit upon is something I said the other day, that we are truly living in a matrix, but it's not a computer generated matrix like the movie. This matrix is the system, the world system. And this, just like you said, you get up, you go to work, you pay taxes, you come home. That's the cycle you're trapped in. We are slaves to the matrix.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Very little, Dennis, very little free energy is left for us to do things like lucid dreaming and perceiving on the other side of awareness. That's because of everything is trapped in doing this and managing it. And then the other thing is that they've given us their mind. So we have this type of negative identities, the negative self. And, that can get so powerful that they can start throwing poltergeists on our own selves. I've seen it a few times. But then you've got these others, these inorganic beings, all they have to do is just pour grease on the fire and blow it up that we're already burning with the negative self. And then they come in with extra voices. People hearing voices right now is at an all-time high.
Oh yeah.
And it's things to realizing that is not all thoughts are our own, especially like you're walking down, like you're walking down the beach, so you thought, man, if somebody took, 20 gallons of oil and pushed it over in there would mess this whole thing up. That's not your thoughts, probably. Where does that even come from? So anyway, but it's being aware of that, and that the body actually stores trauma in different places. Okay. And people can look up, it's not Maslow's chart, but there's a chart that is several that show what organs hold what types of trauma. And what you've got these demonic that once they break down our shields, or people like you and I need to shield ourselves. Sorry.
Hold that thought just a moment. What makes me think about this is that in certain forms of satanic rituals and all this stuff, they are using certain body parts. I don't know if you know that or not, but they use certain body parts in their rituals. Why is that? Why certain body parts? Just like what you hit upon there. There's a difference in these organs that they're going after. And
the vibrational difference. Yeah. Sorry. And what really sucks, Dennis, is that, and something else I had to accept too, that, and I learned this a lot in the regression work, is how many of us are holding trapped emotions from not just past from our ancestors. We're carrying theirs, but we have the ones from our past lives come with us too. And I mean that in a way that really, I still have to try to figure out how it is. It actually goes through the soul matrix from body to body, but it does. For example, I had a client that had come to me for a foot problem, running up to their neck. I'd advise you need to go see a doctor. He said, sounds like sciatica. I said, it's not. I would for that. That's not what it is. And I'm getting from spirit that we should do a regression. So we do. It's a life between lives. And their last life, just before this one, was stepping on a bomb in Vietnam. They described it very vividly. They gave me their name, where they lived, how long they served, everything. We get done or move the trauma, emerge them. Dennis, I get on the Vietnam Memorial site and I type in that name. It pops right up, man. And I mean, not just that, everything was exactly like this person said. But this individual was a male, but it's a female that is my client. But they were a male before. And everything they said was just right the same, except for maybe 1 year was off. They said they died in 66, and on the thing it said 67, 68, but that's not much to deal with being off. The age was correct. The place of location was correct. And before you go, one thing I'll throw in too, because I think people didn't know this, it's a perfect place for me to say it. When doing past life regressions, the first thing I do beforehand is I will usually do earthbound spirit release. Because a lot of times people will have earthbounds on them that have been alive so long or been dead so long, but trapped here hundreds of years or more. And then they have this thing is joined with them, this earthbound joined with them when they're in the hospital as a baby or as a very young person, has always been with them. Okay. And when they do this past life regression, it's really the earthbound's life, not theirs.
That's
very tricky work there.
I've always said about in paranormal investigation, you're dealing many times with echoes of the past. Okay, that's what I call them, echoes of the past. And another thing is that you got to look at when you go into certain circumstances like this. Whenever some of this stuff happens and goes on, you have an increase in paranormal activity around people like that. That's the reason why some of this stuff is going on. You see what I'm saying? And that's the first thing I ask when I go into a house or something that I think it may be demonically challenged or whatever's going on. Do you have any kind of paranormal activity? Because that's one of the very major signs that something like that is going on, you know? And that's
Yeah.
very interesting you bring that up because that is a definite connection. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's so subtle that a lot of people would never know that, or because they don't really deal with earthbound spirits. But I mean, there's so many down here. It's really, really a trip. And I've noticed something else, Dennis. And sometimes we have people that are so horrible in their life with their choices and the intent behind them, hurting others. Then they lose their body, they die, and they turn into something worse. They're still earthbound, but it's like they turn into something worse. And then I've heard earthbounds also tell me about the others. What do you mean the others?
So I had
Well,
a
the
case
others
like
that.
that. I had a
Mhm.
case where the lady was so violent, so evil in her eyes, but she was suspected of being a vampire after she died, coming back like that. Another thing, and I was going to throw this at you right quick, that I have
Yeah.
actually experienced when it comes to the demonic, and I've been into a lot of demonology and stuff. I have found out, this is going to blow your mind when you think about it, that certain people have been trapped, even in the afterlife, okay, by these demonic spirits because they were so infested with them, so connected to them, that even death did not free these people from the influence of these demonic spirits. You ever had that?
Yeah.
You ever run
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
This?
Yeah, absolutely. I sadly, like, I know somebody that was a friend of mine through high school that's still trapped here because one of the last things they were saying was, these devils are after me before they had died. And, it's horrible. And the way they said it was that they've always been after me. You know what I mean? And a lot of the choices that they made in life were not positive one that hurt people, So then I wonder, like, that. I think that's the same kind of situation there. And then we're born and they're still all on us, And I would agree with that definitely. And we've got these
Like
different
you,
levels of,
it's
sorry,
like
what's
you
that?
said earlier. They know how to push on. They know us better than we know ourselves. They know how to push our buttons and jerk our chain. And
Hmm.
affect us the way they want to affect us. But yeah, you're right. That negativity is what they got. Here's the thing about it, though, Barry. We open ourselves up to negative things. What do we expect to get back? We're not going to get positive out of it. Usually, we get only negative back. Negative
Yeah.
begets negativity, and so on. That's why
Hmm.
positive outlooks and all that are so important. To have positive things in your life that will
Yes.
be like water on a duck's back kind of a thing, and you'll be waterproof from this negativity in many ways. But
Hmm.
people unfortunately open doorways, and here's another thing, and you touched upon this too, and I find it very interesting. They can prey upon our emotions because they know that our emotions manipulate us.
Hmm. Yes. 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 And what's interesting about that, Dennis? When you get technical about it, our feelings are invisible, just like most of the inorganic beings are invisible to different degrees.
Oh yeah.
We have these invisible forces that are really running things here, and how we really are all feelings. How it for like my dreaded analysis, like, let's say that this crystal is the Enterprise, and you've got these Klingon warbirds all firing on it, like 4 or 5 of them. And
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing is they're trying to collapse the shields. And for those of us that know how to protect ourselves, these demonics are doing that. They're hitting our shields from several different vectors, which would be like problems with your house. They'll get in the plumbing of your house. Okay. Those haunted houses often have plumbing problems. Then they'll jump over into the transmission in your car in the garage, start messing with the fluids, and that costs you a bunch of money. Then you go to work, you got this idiot petty tyrant that's getting on your nerves, trying to control everybody, desperate to be in middle management, making days horrible. Okay, that's another shot. Okay, then you got your spouse getting mad at you. That's another one. You know, they're doing all, and then what that does is creates these little cracks for those
I
of
like
us who
that.
knows how to shield ourselves, and they go in and they go right for the heart chakra immediately.
I like that analogy that says, my body's not a temple, it's a starship with hull damage, and my shields are down to 13%. That's the way it goes sometimes.
Well, I said, Captain, you gotta get the gold crystal. What crystals? You know, that's just you know, that's
Need
but
some
that
lithium crystals real bad here.
yeah. And you know, and it's hard. It's hard. We got to remember to shield ourselves sometimes 2-3 times a day. It's difficult. It's not easy to even remember it. But the attacks are that constant and nonstop. You nonstop, you know. And
Well, what's
so
the number one thing you do though to kind of protect yourself? You want to share that with everybody? How do you protect yourself, trying to ward off some of this? I know it's not easy to do sometimes, and sometimes they can really catch us off guard when we're not expecting it. But what's one of the major things that you do? That
the first time is I put a shield around myself. One, an emotional shield, and also a light shield I put around myself. And then two is I will use both my imagination and my to actually project my intent of will. And when I say that, you know, when you, it's the same way as if when, you know, sometimes you sit in a room with people and somebody walks in and you know that they don't like a certain person or they don't like them, and that person gets up and leaves. You can just feel it. That's the same way we can project our intent of will in that way to push these beings off. Number two is, or three, whichever one I'm on, sorry. But it's also to put things into verbal, intoning things, telling them to get away from you, banishing them from you, from your perception, from your field of energy.
Oh yeah.
Okay, saying that there's something about putting things into words in these bodies that it does something. We intone things. That's another. Something else you can use too that I've noticed they don't like loving humor. Loving humor keeps a lot of that. Sorry, what's that?
Visualize that band of light around you, like you visualize that, and you kind of maintain that to a certain extent. That's the positivity that we're looking at. You're thinking you have to find an inner peace to project this out. You know, you got to touch that peace, and that helps you project it and shore it up against some of this stuff. You know, that's the way I look at it, and I see that you're doing along the same lines, and that's the way you have to do it. Really. But you have to be very vigilant, especially with your emotions and your mentality and your spiritual aspect. Here's the thing about it, Barry, and I know you've developed this over the years. I know you've been doing this a long time. You've been involved in it. You develop a sensitivity to these things. You develop a very hypersensitivity in some ways to these things. You can even pick up on some certain people that you meet. And I'm not talking about being psychic now or anything like that, but I'm just saying it's the sensitivity that we develop as human beings. It's just like being out in the jungle or the forest and you feel something watching you, kind of thing. You know, that's the way I explain it to people. It's a feeling that you get. It's a knowledge that you have that's connected to this sensitivity. It becomes almost like a sixth sense in some ways. A spider sense kind of thing. You know, it goes off when it happens, you know.
You know, the first time that I was forced to deal with that, I was about 7 years old, and I got attacked by a ghost in a haunted house, a very old house. And this thing attacked me in the basement. And what it did, now that I'm older, no more now, I know what it was doing. It was trying to join with me, but it couldn't. I was protected. And so the next thing was to get me the hell out of there. You know, and it doesn't take much for somebody who's some sort of pervert or something that didn't cross over to jump on a 7-year-old kid. That's easy. And what it felt like is, like when when one of the football player, like when you're in high school, a football player would come up behind you and grab people and bear hugs. And it makes you automatically, like it makes you constrict. So you automatically inflate, but it was that type of an attack. And the next thing was get out. I started going off telepathically, get out, and feeling that need to get out. And the room got colder. And, I knew when I got out, I was like, man, I realized I had gifts for that. So I started praying, oh God, please take it away. Please take it away. Please take it away. And I tried to do everything in my power to shut it out,
I have
whether
heard
it
that
was
a
hanging
lot.
out
I
with
have heard people
friends
say
or.
that a lot. So I wanted it
Mm-hmm,
taken away from me. It scared me that bad. I see where you're coming from with that, because I've
yeah.
had a lot of people. I've counseled a lot of people like that over the years with this sensitivity issue. And I'll tell them, I know you've probably told them the same thing. Well, they'll say, how do I get rid of this? How do I stop this? And I say, well, I got bad news for you. You can't, because it's you. It's part of you. And
Yeah.
you've got to realize that, and you've got to assimilate it into your life, and you got to learn to deal with it and use it for helping other people, maybe, or helping yourself, definitely, or in such situations. You don't want to get rid of it because it's an essential part of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I had encounters my whole life, and especially when I was a kid, and I quit for a few years, and when I got my late teens, I kicked up again. Um, another person was with me on several of these times. It's one thing if that type of delusion is not shared. It's another when they see ships come up with you, and all of a sudden they know they've been on board, but they're missing hours and hours of their time. You're looking at each other and what just happened? Things like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Or is it fades? And so things like that. I felt like I was always chasing after trying to figure out what in the heck was happening to me, why it was always happening, all these different things that were completely what we call paranormal, psychic, spiritual, all that stuff. And in reality, though, it was chasing me. And I guarantee there's a lot of people in your audience like that right now. They thought they're always chasing you, but it's chasing them. It's kind of destiny in that way. So,
To
but
understand.
I,
It's our way of trying to understand what's going on, I think, a lot of times. We just don't know how to do it sometimes. Especially when we're young. We don't understand, trying to understand these things, or trying to find some common ground with them, that we can find an understanding of what's going on. People have a lot of problem with that, Barry. I mean, even older people, definitely. I know you run into that a lot.
every day, my friend, every day. Talking about one thing too, something that I mentioned earlier, um, dealing with these different types of forces. And, I hear so many people, especially in like the new age community, saying that like they're shooting these demon with their arrows and they're using their techniques and all this stuff. And, that's fine. That's fine. And, but a lot of times what we see, like when I first was trying to do an astral projection of type, I was doing these different techniques. I couldn't get it to work. I wanted to astral project like my older brother just seemed to be able to do. And what happened is it augmented the way that I saw psychically. And that's when I started seeing the shadows a lot out of my peripheral, black and white,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is in black and white. A lot of people don't know that. That's why you often see spirits out of your peripheral. It's black and white. And I would see the ones that are smaller, spherical, really fast ones. And there were others that were oval that were a little bigger. And I saw one of the oval ones attack one of my coworkers when I worked this bowling alley as a teenager, attached to the top of her crown chakra, elongated down to about where the sex chakra would be in the back there. And it started pulsing, going from a dark black color to like a gray color, pulsing. And then she's just bowling so hard, she got, what do you call that, Dennis? I think you call it a turkey. You get 5 strikes in a row. She was killing it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, are you all right? Because nobody's in there. We could bowl after hours. And I said, you're all right? She looks at me, well, Barry, it's just the stinking thinking is getting to me. And I didn't know, but she's about to go through a divorce soon. But I knew this thing was flaring her emotions. And that, and 2 other things I'll just touch on. One thing, and so that's the other 2. And and a lot of these people that say they're battling these dark forces, it's probably the ones that are more like that. When I encountered a different one, somebody that was older than me, that knew more than me, that studied Toltec things, other things, has me come over, and we wind up sitting in this dark room. It's got the windows blacked out, and they'd turn the light out in there, and it was very bizarre. But then it didn't take long at all before I started seeing, in almost a pitch black room, the shadows in my peripheral. And at that time, I was starting to learn how to trace them more outside of peripheral. But it was very disconcerting. I was like, "Hey man, you need to turn that light back on, man." And he's like, "I know you've got a lot of free energy, and I know you can see already. I know you see them, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, man, turn the light back on." He says, "Well,
Well,
he said, but you're not really looking at them, Barry."
it's funny you should
And he
bring
got
that up.
quiet. So I did, and then I started looking more, and then I started seeing bigger ones, much bigger than I'd seen before, but seemed to be hurling through the air.
I think
Okay.
these are free energy spirits. Some of these are what I call free energy spirits. They're walkthroughs. They're moving around us all the time. A lot of times we just don't perceive them. And like you say, it's true. They will appear in black shadows or white shadows. I call them. They're almost like white shadows. I have seen spiritual energy. I have seen the demonic manifest in this manner. They would be large, very like large. I would say soccer ball size balls of what I call dirty light. It's not a bright kind of light. It's a dark kind of light. It's kind of hard to explain, but I have seen them manifest like that. And these things can manifest in different ways. And like you said about this with the thing feeding off, she was actually feeding off of that girl. They will do that. These are what we commonly call attachments. People get these things. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I have had a lot of people come to me and said, "Oh, I think I'm living under a curse. Everything's going wrong here lately. I'm losing everything and all that stuff." And I say, well, a lot of times, well, maybe you've picked up some type of attachment. You got to consider that because it will affect you. Some of them will affect you. And like you said, this one, that's very interesting. You said was feeding off of this girl. Really, it was doing that.
I mean, I can see it.
Negativity in her life. She was going through a divorce. She had a lot of emotional upheaval going on. And when you run into these kinds of attachments, I know you have definitely.
Yeah. In the darkness there, the bigger ones I saw, the big one jump by, and I could like hear it when it seemed like it landed like a thump. I heard it. And this dude's telling me, he's weird cat. He's telling me, yeah. He goes, "You heard that, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, those ones, they're dense. You're seeing the bigger ones, they're dense."
Go ahead.
And that always stuck with me for I went out and said, "Man, you turn this damn light on, turn it on." But I never forgot that because I don't care for the dark stuff so much. But I mean, I found out later that that's a technique that was used by Carlos Castaneda and them. But they called them, my friend, some of my neighbor maker friends called them the jumpers, or Carlos Castaneda called them the flyers. But it's the same type of creatures that have given us their minds. Okay. And something else, like I had noticed, I can never explain this. When I learned when I was seeing, I was actually seeing psychically, but I wasn't seeing the pretty colors you see on the books. So I thought I wasn't really seeing psychically. I was seeing an energy field around people. So that goes about 6 feet outside of their body. And for most people, it's got either a spherical shape or sometimes a slightly mushroom shape towards the top. Okay. But when you look at a baby, like a real young baby, like just a year, 2 years old, they have that same luminous cocoon around them, that shield, but they've got another one around it, like a sheen, like a glow of awareness that encapsulates that. But when you start looking at people that are older, you only see that down around their feet, if at all. They're still got the luminous biofield, but it is not that same sheen that the little kids have. What happens to that? It's easy. Those predators eat it by flaring our emotions, giving us all these things, okay? And they're constantly are eating us. And by the time we get even teenagers, that glow is gone, that glow of awareness. And for whatever reason, humanity, Dennis, we are special to a degree. Not any other, no others have that glow of awareness, but it makes us food for these predators. Sorry, what's that?
Since you mentioned that about making a sound, I have had several instances where I have banished spirits from certain places, and when they leave, Barry, they will knock something over or make a noise, some kind of a noise. I think, to me, the experiences I've had in that lead me to believe that there may be some kind of electrical thing going on with that, some kind of energy transference going on with that to make that noise and all that. And it's very interesting you brought that up. But I've had
Do
a
you
lot
think
of
they're drawing the power in, Dennis, or they're dispelling it? You think they're bringing it in to manifest it, or it's projecting it out?
They use that energy, Barry, to do what
For
they have to do.
manifestation.
We know that definitely. And since you should bring up these shadow people, because I've had a lot of dealings with shadow people, there is a lot of negativity attached to some of this stuff because people have been done negative. You know, they've had negative experiences with them. I think, though, without a doubt, some of these things are not demonic. I think they're interdimensional. Without a doubt, that's what's going on with some of these things. I call them walkthroughs. I think you're just kind of walking through, passing through, and they usually don't bother anyone when they do. I mean, they're not bothering, they're not interfering with anybody. You just see them, you know, you just catch a glimpse of them. That disturbs people, but they're usually not disturbing people on their own. You know what I'm saying? And I know you've had that experience as well. But I just wanted to bring that up about the sound. I think it's some kind of energy, definitely vibrational energy, something going on with that. Because, and I have seen spiritual energy manifest in globes, like a little small, spheres, and pop. They pop. I've actually heard them pop, make a noise like a firecracker, not that loud, but like a small firecracker type thing. I've had that experience as well.
You know, I'm of the belief that certain types, anyway, of Sasquatch use sometimes the fear of people to help themselves manifest. I think they use trees a lot of the time. And then when the trees burn out or something, I think they use people. And I based that on some of the things I've heard. And it's really weird when you have these Sasquatch running up and they're doing more than a bluff charge. They're doing things like running by a car, almost like those birds do, like that game birds seem to play with cars sometimes. Seems like you Sasquatch doing things that generate fear in people, especially teenagers. And are they using that to manifest? I don't know. It's just food for thought.
Oh yeah,
I think a
they're
lot of times when we hear those tree knocks, is
it's a
that them
power.
using trees to manifest? I've heard that. Instead of opposed to actually hitting trees, they're using that as a manifestation.
It's a power source for them, I think. They're using that definitely. And you know, since you brought the cryptids up, and I believe this without doubt, there's certain cryptids, whether it be like Dogman or supposed Bigfoot, which I saw Bigfoot one time. I mean, very close up. And I just get the feeling, Barry. I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I just get the feeling, my own personal feeling, that some of these creatures definitely have a spiritual aspect to them. I think there's some very strong connection with that. What do you think?
I agree. Hey, real quick, a question. Now, the Bigfoot you saw, Dennis, what do you think it was? Like type 1, 2, 3, or whatever? How big was it? What was it like? What happened?
I would classify it as probably about like a 2, maybe. It was probably around very close. I know at least over 8 foot tall. Because later on I went, it was at the tree that this happened at. I was very close to it. I'm gonna say I was close enough to reach out and grab this thing if I wanted to try. I wouldn't attempt to do that, but it might not turn out too good. But I was close enough to do that. I could pick up his body heat and the smell off of him and his movement. And he stepped behind a very large oak tree, a very wide sort of a white oak, I think they get big trunks on them. And he stepped behind this big oak just that quickly, and I followed him. I immediately said, I want to see more of this, Instead of running away from it, I was running to it. That's kind of
testicular fortitude, don't you?
I had to go see more. And I immediately went around this tree, and he was not there. And I looked up in the tree. I looked for a hole in the ground. There was no way looking down through that forest that he could not have gotten away going through there without moving some of that low brush and everything. I would have seen it, put it that way, that quickly, And where did he go? That's always been, I've asked a lot of people, where do you think he went? Did he step into another reality? Did he become part of that tree? What happened with him?
What do you think?
But he had a look on his face, Barry. I'll tell you this, and this has struck me. He had sort of a surprised look on his face, like, what are you doing here? And I'm sure I had the same look, probably. But we made eye contact for just a moment, okay?
Wow.
And
Wow.
I could see that I'm not going to say he had eye shine because I wasn't shining a light on, but there was
Yeah.
a glimmer in his eye. I mean, it was, it was definitely, we made eye contact. I could see that.
Wow.
And I didn't get any, I got sort of the feeling, and it's hard to explain, that this thing didn't really belong here, and yet he did. I had both feelings at the same time seeing this.
Well, that's
That's hard to
interesting.
explain, but and the one thing I came away with that, and he had very human-like characteristics to him. He wasn't a big ball of hair or anything. I mean, he had a facial look to him. He had facial, and his hair. I remember this very well. And his hair was brown, but it was not a light brown. It was sort of a dark brown. And but it was brown. It wasn't black, or it wasn't light colored, anything like that. And the hair on his head was like you and I would grow long hair. Okay, that's the way it looked on him. Okay,
Yeah.
he looked like some guy with long hair, but he had hair all over him. From what I could see, but it was so quick. That's the only thing I could pick up on was that impression of it. And I've told people over the years it was like seeing an image in a flash of lightning. You take it in as much as possible, but there's only so much you can take in. That's the way it goes.
How tall you think he was again? No.
I think he was at least around 8 foot. He was not a huge.
Wow,
It was not no gigantic thing.
That's
But
pretty good
I went
size,
back
though.
later. It was very, well, there was a limb on this tree, and I went back and measured it later, and it was slightly over 8. I think it was like 8 foot and 6 inches, something like that, from the ground to this limb. And he was under this limb, but it was very close to him. So I put him around at least 8 foot, if not a slightly more.
Okay. Wow, that's cool. That's cool, man. That's cool.
I'd classify him as a 2 because of the facial features.
Yeah.
What I could see, he wasn't a skunk ape. You always hear about the skunk apes. This was not a skunk ape because he was bigger and more muscular than that. He was, the skunk ape to me, the pictures that I suppose have seen, drawings and people, and I've read tons of this junk. It's described more as being an ape-like thing.
Baboon like kind of.
Along those lines. Those are found mostly in lower part of Georgia and Florida, et cetera, down in there. Although some have supposedly been seen in South Carolina. That's where I'm at. And I'm not that far from Jessica, actually, from the Georgia border. But the Bigfoot that's been seen around here has been sort of a class 2, I would say, probably somewhere along those lines.
Speaking of that, so I have a question, something else, and I don't want to take us off topic too much, but it's just, I know you're the person that can answer this. Okay, so when dealing with not just folklore, but tradition of what are darker arts, what is the exact significance of putting nails in the eyes of figurines or dolls? And I know it has something to do with, what do they call that word? Is it oculophilic reflex, which is some reason, which is a movement like a type of nystagmus. And I know one reason that they make the doll's eyes like move and things, but what is the significance of actually that and putting the nails in like the eyes of a figurine or doll? Could you tell me that?
Well, according to, I think,
is it getting into, I read reading in the brain and controlling the brain more for hallucinations and things, but anyway,
putting the nail in any kind of a figure is kind of a little bit along the voodoo lines, but it's not really voodoo, okay, in that respect. Like the voodoo doll, the pins, I got one around here somewhere. And I need you to send me some hair when you get a chance, okay? But anyway.
I'll make sure to do that, my friend.
Anyway, the significance of driving nails in something is that what you're doing is having more power over that thing, okay? That's a symbolism of power, especially in the eyes. What you're doing is that's going sort of like driving nails in the spirit of someone. That's what that usually stands for. And why they do that, and why they do the nails in the eyes. That's what you're basically doing is putting more power over a spiritual aspect of whatever that doll or figure represents. And it is kind of voodoo like, but it's not really out and out voodoo. Although there are many different aspects of voodoo, as you know, I'm sure there are different kind of beliefs in voodoo, the different types of voodoo that come from different areas mainly. That's where Africa is, of course, its origin, but it went to different places like Haiti and all that. So you have different types of voodoo, you have different sects of voodoo belief. But that is mainly to do with pins and dolls. But this aspect, I think, is also, which since you brought this up, is found in different aspects of what we call witch dolls in the Appalachians. And the witch dolls were found with these nails supposedly driven in their eyes and in the ears. It can be also in the ears. So what they're doing basically is saying that we've got control over what you see or what you think or what you hear. It is a control thing, supposedly. And here's another interesting aspect of it, Barry, is it kind of goes back to the golem. You know what the golem is? The golem.
Yeah, that's the like
The
the
figure,
big
yeah, the clay figure.
the clay. Yeah,
It is associated with that to a certain extent because you make these figures. Supposedly, you're like you put life in them. That's what you're doing. You're putting sort of life, and I'm not saying a spirit, but a soul. But you're bringing them to life. They may be very soulless, but what you're doing is creating a living thing here, supposedly, and you put these nails in it to control it in certain ways, supposedly, and it's sort of like a golem, in that respect.
almost like trapping an inorganic being into the thing. You know, I gotta tell you, I'm asking this for a very specific reason, and I knew the person would know. And it's okay. I don't want to give too much out, but I gave you Miss Jessica, our buddy, and I give her these blind targets, and I gave her one she was very interested in. All right, and I always try, Dennis. I don't like the dark stuff much, so I try not to give anything that could be harmful. But this one, I was too curious. All right.
Oh yeah.
And this target I gave her was the crone statue from the Catskills. Are you familiar with that one?
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and what really had always caught my attention about that is the two people that own that dark objects or haunted objects museum, Dana Matthews and Greg Newkirk. They got a hold of that. They also do the traveling. They put that thing. It's a traveling museum also. Yeah. And the two objects that I've heard them mention that they would
have
never
a lot
put
of
on
items. Yeah.
Yeah. Do they really? See, I don't know that much, but they say the two objects they would never put out was this chrome doll and also the black mirror that they got from supposedly P.T. Barnum's. They said those things are so haunted that they got rid of that chrome and put it back in the whatever cave that is and took the nails out of its eyes.
Here's the interesting thing about the scrying mirrors, Barry. There's a belief that souls or spirits can become trapped in these. That you can. Here's the thing about there's two ways you use the scrying. Well, there's different ways, many different ways, I'm sure, but the two main ways that you use a scrying mirror is to look in it to foretell the future or see certain events that you want to see, sort of to pick up on visions, you might say. But the other use of it is to call up spirits and get them. And well, there is a long-held belief that spirits can become trapped in mirrors. And that was supposed to be why they supposedly didn't want to exhibit this mirror, because it has spirits trapped in it and all that. They have some very interesting objects that they travel around with and show. But definitely that one. Here's the thing about when you do these things and you have these targets that you pick up on, you have to be very, very extremely careful what you're touching on, because it can be very badly effective if you're not careful. Now, I know our good friend Jessica has had a lot of experience with that, definitely. And the more you work with it, the more experience you get. That's just like you said at the beginning of this broadcast. the more you do, the more you learn.
Yeah,
Hopefully, if you stop learning, you're in a bad situation there. Okay,
yeah,
but that's the way it goes with the paranormal and all this stuff, Barry. The more we do, the more we learn. We just have to be very careful how we learn.
yeah. What I
That's
think I had
important.
tried a technique when I was much younger, and it was involved building a frame around a mirror, which actually puts your intent into it. Then you take it to a running stream and put it
Yes.
down in the stream, anchor it on the ground, and then you start doing gazing techniques through it. And what this is the shining surface and the water itself always creates portals. But in this case, it's even double
Oh
with
yeah.
the water flowing over. And then what happens is that gives you access to what they call the levels of fluidity.
Well,
And the
look at the
beings that live in it, that's like a knock on the door.
look at the
So, you
long
know, I
history of
blessed,
water.
yeah, I blessed the technique before I did it, but I did it, you know, and I start seeing what looked like,
Gotta remember, water is a conductor too, of
mhm,
not just electricity, of other things as well. And I think it's the very essence of life can be actually brought into the water thing too. But look at how many different entities are connected to water. You got mermaids, you got sirens, you got all these other different types of dryads and all this other stuff, water nymphs and all this stuff that are connected to bodies of water. But water is a definitely an earth magic thing, okay, without a doubt. And anything like that, Barry, has the
mhm,
potential to hold and put forth energy
mhm.
to a great
you know,
extent.
you
And
know,
we have to understand that. And that goes with other aspects of nature that's around us, wind, earth, whatever the situation. All of these things, a lot of people don't realize this and never think about it. But look at lightning. It is one of the biggest energy. Remember, there was a certain guy had a DeLorean that knew all about that. Uh, at 88 miles an hour. Okay, but here's the thing about it. That is one of the most powerful natural sources of energy when you think about it. And where does it come from? It comes from the earth. It's the magnetic energy of the earth. Think about this a
mhm,
moment.
mhm,
Mind boggling. When we think of lightning coming down, but it's actually bouncing back from the
mhm,
earth.
mhm, mhm,
It goes from the earth up and bounces back. But look how powerful that is. Imagine that. And look what water can do. Look what earthquakes can do. And the
mhm,
ocean and
mhm,
all this stuff. This is definite what I like to call earth magic. It's earth energy.
mhm.
And
Yeah, yeah,
some people and things in our existence can
yeah,
tap into that.
yeah. And for me, you know, what was this thing came to mirror several times. It's moving around it, and I can see it very clearly. And then, you know, I didn't know fully enough of what I was doing because I hadn't learned yet, and it came through the mirror. And then,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, I mean, I
I
stopped
agree.
the technique, and then next thing I know, there's a huge Atlas moth that's like just a few inches from my head. Okay. And I tried to put this thing at left and all thing, you know, then for several days, I saw this Atlas moth. It's like it
Oh,
was
yeah.
following me around or something. See, that's the thing with that's cognitive bias, cognitive dissonance, how I was perceiving it. It's that energy ball that came through. See, sometimes they come through those portals, they can't always get back. So that, you know, one of those things we just got to be aware of. I'm glad I blessed the technique, or otherwise I could have had a negative inorganic being follow me around the rest of my life. You know what I mean? But we have the old ones that could take certain devices like crystals or boxes and actually put intent into that and trap those inorganic beings in those boxes, in those devices.
That includes
Hmm.
crystals and mirrors,
Hmm.
things of
Hmm.
glass.
Hmm. Yeah.
Definitely, these things can utilize stuff like that without a doubt. And one more thing I was going to say about the vampires being able to see themselves in a mirror. And we were talking about this the other day. I think they could now see themselves in a mirror. I think we can get them on. We can get them on video. Once upon a time, we couldn't do that because mirrors had what kind of backing? Silver nitrate type
Silver.
backings.
Yeah.
Silver would not allow certain spiritual things to be shown in that respect. I think that has a big thing to do with it. And guess what? Some of the film they would use was silver nitrate film. Okay.
Wow.
So
Wow.
definitely you would not pick up spiritual entities on something like that. But I think now we have a better chance with additional stuff, than we had
Yeah.
before. To me, that's interesting though, is that silver has properties against these type of things. We got to remember that there are certain things that can repel these things. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And it's not
Yeah.
just your
Yeah.
frame of mind too. You can use
Mhm.
physical things to protect
Yeah.
yourself as well.
I noticed something. There's something I like about you. You're a fan of a lot of things I am. I caught it on Facebook. You're a fan of Lon Chaney Jr. I like I liked all the original. My mom was really into all this. She could,
I got a geeky side to me. Yeah, definitely.
yeah. My mom could have been like on Turner Classics. She could have been one of those people. But I always used to get a kick out of it how he used that silver-headed cane to beat that wolf down.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's the first time I got introduced really to how silver was
Actually, I have a
detrimental to
real silver
werewolves.
bullet here. I have a real silver bullet here, and it's not the Long Rangers either. But I happen to have a 45 Magnum silver bullet. We'll take a werewolf down. Okay, got Stephen King. But anyway, silver
Wow.
bullet. Remember that? But you know what? I don't know if
Yeah.
you've
Oh
ever
yeah.
seen
Oh yeah.
this movie, and I want to mention it to you while I'm thinking about it. If you've never seen it, you may have. Um, you need to watch this. You cannot live the rest of your life without watching this movie. Okay, it's called Curse of the Demon, and it is an old black and white movie from the 1950s. It is one of my favorite all-time movies. Write that down, Curse of the Demon, and it stars Dana Andrews, the very famous Dana Andrews. Great movie. You need to watch
I
that.
heard
It
of
is
that
a
one.
fantastic, and it's based on a M.R. James book or a short story called Casting the Runes. If you watch this movie, you'll never take anything from anybody else again.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
You'll
one
think
of
twice
those.
about it. You need to watch this movie. I think it is on right now free. I don't know if you have you got Prime?
No, but I can probably get it though.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
you can watch it on Prime. You can
All
rent
right.
it on Prime if you want to, whatever. But
Cool.
great movie. You need to see that movie. Absolutely. It is a fantastic, an old shock theater movie. We used to
Uh-huh.
have a show on called Shock Theater on Saturday morning. Had all the
Oh,
monsters.
okay.
This is a Universal movie, and it is one of the best. Along the lines of the Wolfman and stuff like that.
Like they live all those movies. So one more question I have for you, Dennis. What can you tell me about the lady in white? I was listening to you and Jessica talking today, and that came up not quite, but kind of. And I did a video a while back, and it's often she's been seen with Sasquatch and Bigfoot that they've been seen with them, and just this women in white that's reported like all over the globe. First time I even got exposed to that, it was a client that I had a juvenile offender, and he actually was
There's
here
a
now, but he was from
there's a lot of speculation on that, Barry. Is she a banshee, like, or something like La Llorona, a weeping woman? Has she attached herself to this? And like I said, we were talking about earlier, I believe a lot of these cryptids actually have a very spiritual aspect to them, and that might be why certain things attach to each other in certain circumstances like this. But this woman in white, supposedly, has been seen many different places, like you say, over the years, and associated with Bigfoot sightings. Whether or not they're hanging out together for sure, I can't say that for sure. But it's very interesting that people will pick up on this. And supposedly there are trail cams. I don't know if you've seen these that have actually picked her up a couple of times
no, I
on the
didn't
trail
know.
cams. You might want to check that out if you can get a chance. I've seen them. I think it was on TikTok and on Instagram. Anyway, she's supposed to have been picked up on trail cams. It is sort of a mystery. A lot of people don't understand what it is. She doesn't exhibit actions like a banshee. She's not screaming and hollering and crying and all that. She's very quiet. I have to wonder a lot about this. Is this some earthbound spirit of some sort that has attached to this? Or what? And it's not, and she doesn't act like La Llorona does. La Llorona is sort of like a Spanish version of the Banshee. It's interesting. But anyway, it is a big mystery, and has it popped up a lot of times. And it's very much like the connection. You might want to look at this. You know, I think Jessica's talked about this before too. The connection between dogmen and cemeteries. I think here's just my own feeling. Okay, Barry. I think a lot of this stuff is conjuring. It's being manifested and brought forth from the darkness for certain reasons, bad reasons. And I'll say this: there is a big history of this kind of junk going on wherever the Appalachian Mountains, at the foothills and everything that connected with these mountain range. And by the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but once upon a time, the Appalachian Mountain Range was part of the Scottish Highlands before the continents broke apart. So this
Duck of
goes
a
into
cloud
Europe.
up in there. Got some clouds in there, man. Okay, yeah. No, I didn't know that actually. No, I did not know that.
That's where
You
my
know,
people from,
it's
Scottish Highlands. But anyway, that's very interesting. You know that there is this magical thing. You know, and I've talked to Jessica about this many times before. We've done several shows on it. That there is a definite connection between this conjuring and all that. Matter of fact, you heard me mention that story today about the Conjure Man. That's a big story in the Appalachians, and I used to tell kids a story about that. And the name of it was called Wiley and the Hairy Man, which was a very interesting thing. And he is described as being a magical being, sort of like a grand wizard type thing, uh, sort of like Gandalf or something, you know, from Lord of the Rings. He's sort of a conjure man. He's sort of supreme witch. In other words, other witches wouldn't mess with him. He's sort of, I call it witches on steroids. Whatever way you want to go with it, but he is a bad dude too. So you got a strong, and here's the main thing we need to look at, Mary. And I'll say this: we need to look very closely at folklore because there are so many clues and so many truths in folklore that we overlook that point us in the way we need to go, in the direction we need to go. I think it was Tolkien who said, I don't know if you're a big fan of J.R.R. Tolkien. I am. I love the Lord of the Rings and that kind of stuff. He said that we should not discount the tales of old wives, for there is a lot of truth in them. And that's a very true statement. And I think a lot of that is found in that. Absolutely.
First I'd heard about the woman in white. It was a client. He had told me it was from God, not Sonora, somewhere near
Well,
Sonora. And he had said that they had seen this woman in white out in the desert out there. So they said never go approach her or anything. They'd see her out there walking around. That's what he called her La Blanca. I never heard of such. But my friend Rosie, she's on YouTube too. She did some videos with her mother and like her mother's older and talked about she's from Africa and talked about these these at her grandmother's house there was like a fire pit and they could sleep on those hammocks that were near. And her grandmother told her if you see the women around the fire, don't go near them and don't try to talk to them.
I know you're familiar with the world famous ghost story of the ghostly hitchhiker. The girl that people pick up. You know what I'm talking about? Guess what she's described always as? She's always described as wearing white.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. And what does she do when they pick her up exactly? What does she do?
Transcends a lot of different areas and stuff.
What does she do when they pick her up? Does she talk to them? What does she do? Or do they never?
Well, yeah, she'll talk to them. She'll say, she'll give them the address. I live so and so. I think the very famous one's in Chicago, outside Resurrection Mary, they call her. She's been picked up. She even went to a dance one time with a guy. And when they got through, she took her home, and guess where her home was? A cemetery. And she disappeared in the cemetery. So you got a lot of stories. She's always described as wearing white. People have supposedly seen these things for centuries, Barry. The woman in white is a very universal ghost. Okay. She gets around in a lot of places. And she can be sometimes considered almost angelic. The girl, I think, in one instance told the guy She said, "Well, you can just drop me off down here on the corner. That's where I died." So it's
Wow.
sort of
Wow. Well, that's that.
yeah,
That'll break up a date real quick. That'll, yeah. My friend Rosie, her mother had said that around this fire, like they were sleeping on these hammocks or whatever, but they start hearing noises and they look up, and around this fire pit are all these women. And this is, I want to say, is it Somalia? Where's she from? But anyway, around this fire pit are all these women that are doing basket weaving. They're basket weavers.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all kind of talking, but they're all sitting around each other. And later on, she's going to find out those weren't real people. There's some type of spirits or something that are always there doing that. I found that very, very interesting, and how much that might even tie into something like the women in white. And I mean, how deep does this stuff go? You know what I mean? And as far as
I have a ghost story from Africa. I forget exactly where in Africa. It might have somewhere in the Congo. Anyway, with this supposedly family saw a baptism taking place. They were baptizing people, and they were all wearing white, like a church group would do. And they were like in the river baptizing people. And they actually saw this, and she found out later that the supposed church they come from had burnt down 20 years before that, and everybody was dead and all that. I mean, it was a long gone thing. And what she saw was sort of a scene of the past of a baptism thing that took place with all these people that were dead. That was very strange. You run into ghost stories like that.
Wow. Yeah. It's and sometimes you wonder how much of it is earthbound trapped or even just phantom images from the past.
I
And
think
things like that have the earth holds images and holds imprints.
Differentiate between what we're seeing as being in our time, moving along in our time and space, or is it just something like, a snippet from the past that we're actually viewing, and it's not interacting with, a lot of times, Barry, if they don't interact with you and they go about doing their own stuff and they don't even acknowledge you being there, you're looking, I think, without a doubt, at a sort of a cut of the past there, something that's from the past, and you're seeing you're in the right place at the right time. That is a residual type haunting, definitely, without a doubt. But if you have interaction from something, like meeting someone and talking to them and everything, that is a true ghost thing. I mean, although it can also be, in certain instances, angelic as well.
Yeah. That brings up something interesting. And I've talked about this before, is when we deal with these quote unquote demonic entities and things, and then you have those from the other side, the light side, where we want to call it, to coming to fight them. Is it really going to be a bunch of carpenters in sandals, or is it going to be creatures that are just as fierce that they're sent to destroy? I think that's something we have to be aware of. You know what I mean? When we see some of these different,
very like that scene that's from the Bible. I know you remember this, where Elijah and Elisha were standing together at a battle with the Philistines, and Elisha was talking to Elijah, and he said, "Boy, we're gonna get wiped out today. Like we're 2-1. There's 2-1 against us here. We're gonna get wiped out." And Elijah said, ask God, said, "Please open this man's eyes so that he can see what's really going on here." And all of a sudden, Elisha says, "Where do all these men come from on our side with swords?" And that's when Elijah said, "These are the men of the Lord, and they've come to help us. You couldn't see them because your eyes were blinded spiritually, and now you can." And that is, I think, a very interesting concept in that. There's I believe, a whole lot in this universe that we can't see that's going on around us all the time, And like you said earlier in the broadcast, sometimes we get a glimpse. Sometimes, and it's like we were talking about the other day and I got a very interesting case going on. I don't know if you saw my thing the other night about this woman claims that her husband is a clone. She said that this is not my husband, and he works for a defense contractor. Okay.
Oh, really?
In the Pentagon. And she said, "This man's not my husband." I don't know who or what he is, but it's not my husband. Said I don't even feel like it's him. She said, I know my husband. I've been married to him 20 years, and this is not my husband. She said he's just not acting like himself. He is very unemotional. This sounds like body snatchers, okay? It sounds like a pod person. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
and here's the clincher, Barry. I said, says that even a little girl that they got said, "What's wrong with Daddy?" They're picking up on something here. It's
Oh,
not right,
wow.
okay? And here's the clincher. She said, "All the years I've known my husband, he has driven the car right-handed. Now he's driving it left-handed."
Oh, really?
So you got a lot of stuff going on out there that's coming over
You,
into our physical world now, whatever it may be.
that almost
And
seems
it's
like sounds like a
invading our
doppelganger.
reality. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's a
Mhm.
very, very interesting. That's very interesting. And yeah, and I don't know where it begins and ends, you know. It wow, and especially if he's working with one of those agencies like that. You know, I've talked to a number of people now that are real targeted individuals, and they get into those programs through something like that. You know, things
Here's
are
what
often wow,
I'll
wow.
share this with you right quick before we close here. I've told this to on another show not long ago. I don't know if you picked up on this or what, but actually years ago I was approached by the CIA to join the CIA. They asked me to join, and they told me something very interesting. Of course, I refused to do it because I'm not going to work for the company because the only way out of the company most of the time is through the morgue. Okay, but here's something what he told me, and this is what astounded me. Why do you want me? I'm just a regular guy. What do you want me? He said, because you know a lot about demonology. You know what? Why do they need to know about demonology here? That was the one question that came away. And here's what he said to me. Now listen to this. And this is what floored me because this was a real deal. I mean, he showed me his credentials and everything. This is a real deal. Okay. This is what he said. He said, "We are recruiting people with supernatural talents."
Mm,
And I said, "What do you mean? Like witches, whatever, psychics?" He said, "Any kind of supernatural talents. We're recruiting those kind of people. You sure you don't want to join in?" I said, "No, no, no, thank you. No, thank you. No." But
wow.
that astounded me. What's really going on? That they need
Mhm.
people like that. Do they have people who can turn into werewolves? I mean, what do they have? What have they got in the company and working for them? And here's the thing about it: the CIA that we know about, Barry, the FBI that we know about, the national things that all this stuff are facades for what's really behind it. Okay,
Mhm,
we're
mhm.
seeing the storefront. We're not seeing the
Yeah,
real store or what's going on.
yeah.
And just like we talked about on Jessica before, and I know this, we talking about these like people seeing the eyes, the reptilian eyes, or the image faltering for a moment. We are seeing the mask slip once in a while on what some of these entities that are walking among us really are. Once in a while,
Mhm.
and I think it's spiritual to a certain extent. If our spirit is in the right place, or our mind is in the right place, and we're at the right place at the right time, we'll see the mask slip.
Mhm,
You
mhm,
know,
mhm.
because what these guys are doing is not perfect. They're gonna have imperfections no matter what, because all this stuff is imperfected stuff. Okay, we're going to see that, and I think we're going to see more and more of that in the future. What do you think?
I agree. I agree. You know, the veil is thinning, and the frequencies or vibrations that allow us to see some of these things, they're starting to merge or entwine much more often. And I think that's one of the evidence that consciousness is actually rising on this planet. You know, which is not fast enough from my opinion, but it's starting to change. And you know, when dealing with that, I think you're dealing again with one of these organizations that hunts younger people too, takes kids out of the tag programs and things like that. You know, I think very interesting. You know, it's stuff like this that made me really examine my whole life to see, like if I had been messed with or if approached in any way,
I
like
tell
what
you,
you're saying. You know what I mean?
I tell you, I think the number one reason why the veil is thinning is not CERN. It's not that the moon and the planets are right or whatever the situation. I think it is the fact that we are becoming more aware of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the worldwide communication web thing has only hastened it. We can trade information so much faster now
Mhm.
that it's raising consciousness in that way too. So that
Our minds are more open to these things. That's what's going on. And of course, we don't want our minds to be too open or our brains will fall out. Okay. But we got to watch out for that. But, we are becoming, I think, more aware. I'm gonna turn you loose here, but I thought, what do you have any closing thoughts on all of this?
just so everybody, I mean, we're in trying times right now. Everything's going on. I saw people arguing at the store today based on what's going on and happened today, the change in today. So, it's more, I think people just need to really try to hold the higher vibration and try to look at the positive and try to really, make a difference. And, real quick, when I died, a lot of people ask, what'd you see? What happened? It's not as cool as the stuff you see on TV. But I'll tell you this, being somebody that thought he was spiritual before that and tried to really live by the golden rule, still I greatly underestimated the impact that our relationship have on each other and how that goes to the other side. The intent behind our choices and the intent behind our relationships is what really goes with us. That's very, very important. It's important about how
Well,
much we take that awareness with us over there. Maybe you don't have to go so sleep when you actually pass. You know what I mean?
that's what I said not long ago. I agree with what you're saying. The bad guys already know about this, okay? But we need to realize it. The more united we are, the more power we have, and the better off we are. There is a power in unity, and we should not let them. And that's what they want to do. They want to separate us. They want to turn us against each other. They want to pigeonhole us right where they want us, because that's the way you do with control, okay? And we got to realize that. And the more we support each other, the more we stick together, the more we unite. They don't like that. They hate that, okay? Because they realize that we have more power that way. And like I have said so many times in the past, and I think it's very true, is that the darkness out there, the negative, wants to keep you as a victim because it fears you as a warrior.
And we are their food. So the truth is, if people still had that glow of awareness I talked about as they do as a baby, and it wasn't depleted to our feet and below,
Oh, yeah.
the truth is, Dennis, we would be magical beings. We're supposed to be magical beings. The creative principle passes through us, and that's being taken from us by having these minds of the predator. But the truth is, we should be magical beings, and this should be more of a, I don't want to say utopia, but closer than what we got now by far. Anyway, you know what I mean.
Well, we mentioned that the other night. Go back to the Bible for a moment. There's a very interesting incident in the Bible where Jesus was in a crowd of people. You remember this? And a woman touched him, and Jesus said, "Who touched me?" And the disciples said, "Well, Lord, we're in a big crowd here. Could have been anybody." He said, "No, somebody touched me because virtue went out of me."
Oh, wow.
That was sort of touching the spiritual aspect of someone, And
Wow.
I think if we could get back in touch with that and develop that, and that halo, like you see in all the old religious pictures, the halo that they have that they have that virtue there. They've got, like you saying, that you're seeing this in the younger people that have this and all this thing, this innocence that's around them. It is an essence, I think, of innocence and spirituality that they're exhibiting here. If we develop that more, then we will have the true armor of God on us. You know what I'm saying?
You asked what I use also to keep things off me, and I don't always mention this publicly because it makes it sound like I'm religious. I'm not. I have no religion. But one thing that these beings, when I really in the presence of a non-human, no BS, okay, and for real, it freaked me out always. I start thinking in your mind, I'm asking, who are you? What do you want? Where are you from? All those things. And Dennis, I got the same answer every time from all these different beings I was interacting with. I got the Christ consciousness and the Christ energy. And automatically I'd be like, oh, don't try to throw religion on me. I'm trying to think this about it. Before I can even do that, they're hitting me with, no, this is above any person, any organization, any religion, human institution. This is a frequency, a vibration of the love, a love frequency that we can access, all of us. And I've never went through any of this SSP stuff, none of this demonic stuff, all these other people have been through, thank God. But I think that's a lot to do with that. That's real. And I say that in a non-religious way. So certain energies we deal with, it's important. It's important, especially towards protection.
Well, I've said this before. I'll say it again. I do not believe in the religion of God, because religion is a man-made thing. Okay, that's made up by men. Okay, I believe in the kingdom of God. That is made by God. God has no denomination. God never had any. Not God said, "I'm this religion" or something. He never said that. He never ever said that. And I go along with that, definitely. But one more thing, I'll say this, and we'll close it out. The interesting thing about all of this is that we deny the spiritual aspects of ourselves through our own discord, and we need to be careful with that. We need to recognize the spiritual aspects of not only the world around us, but the spiritual concept that exists within all of us, to that extent. Absolutely. You know what? I appreciate you being here, brother.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate you. Appreciate your audience. Thank you. It's an honor.
Absolutely. And it's always fun when we get together. We get them. Who knows where we'll go. But anyway, I'll get you back real soon, maybe one day. And I know you're a very busy guy. And
always got time for you, my friend.
Where they can find you at on your show.
Yeah, my YouTube is Barry Littleton on YouTube, and I'm on Facebook under Barry Littleton. I have a Patreon, but I'm about done making videos, so I'm probably not going to shut that down soon. But hit me on YouTube, hit me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram also under Barry Littleton. I don't have any cool handles or anything, so not yet.
So that Patreon is patreon.com at what? Barry Littleton?
Barry Littleton on Patreon, yeah.
Oh,
Patreon.com.
Okay.
Yeah, everything is just Barry Littleton. Like I said, no cool handles or anything.
All right. I got you. Well, I appreciate you being here. It's always fun. And
hey, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Go warm your TARDIS up, and we'll get together again real soon one day, and I appreciate you being here. And I'll let you go. I know you're a busy guy and you got a lot going on. So you take care of yourself out there, okay, bud?
Thank you, my friend. Take care. Thank you.
All right. All right, that's fantastic. Great guy. I always enjoy talking to him. He activates my geeky side here. Okay. We're gonna have to do a show together with just geek stuff. Okay, one day, absolutely. Talk about the geeky stuff on it. Well, I appreciate you all being here tonight, and it has been an exhilarating hour or so. It's been about an hour and a half, actually. And time passes when you're having fun. That's the way it goes. And I want to appreciate you all definitely being here. And some of the events of the past few hours and all that we saw, I think some prayers get answered and some things that went on that are part of our destiny, without a doubt. I want to appreciate you all being here tonight and for your support. The Patreon is growing. We have a Patreon. Yes, we do. Let me bring it up here right quick for you. Here it is right here. Patreon at Hunting the Shadows Podcast. Okay. And check it out. Join if you want to become an official shadow hunter. It's growing. And I'm thinking about getting some patches made with Shadow Hunter on them. Okay. You might want one of those in the future. Absolutely. And I want to thank all of you tonight for being here and all your great observations and your questions and your stuff, and I enjoyed looking at the chat room. And thank you, Girl on the Gong. Let me stick that up there right quick for you. And appreciate you all being here. It's been a fantastic show. And come back and see us again real soon. Friday night, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Paranormal Point of View. We're going to be talking about movies. We're going to talk about some books. I'm doing some review on some books and stuff. So come on back Friday and hang out with us, all right? And until we get together again, remember, non-timbo mala, which means fear no evil. Hold on to the light and embrace the mystery. Till we get together again, my friends, Godspeed. The hunt has begun. Hunting the shadows.